But when I was listening to you speak about it, I thought you made a really good point that dyslexia is a condition and it's permanent. It's not like the measles where you get it and you get over it. You have to really
it's a condition.
Live with it all your life and adjust for it. Yeah. And then you went on to say, but it can be a gift to have this kind of disability because it can allow you abstract thought and some creative powers that maybe you wouldn't. Can you develop that just a little?
Well, to begin with, I believe it's a gift because people with, and I've been taught to say by my friends at the IDA, International Dyslexia Association, that we now say learning differences. Because, in effect, that's really what it is.
Sure.
About 10% of the population, maybe a little bit more, processes language differently. And it's just the way, it may be that we come from different species, that we were genetically developed slightly different. They've now pretty much determined for sure that it's passed down father to son, mother to daughter, that it does travel down through families. So there is a genetic component. And, one of the things that, that I think is really interesting about it is that what dyslexics do is they process language in a different portion of the brain. And we're now just learning this because of being able to put people in MRIs and get them to read. And you can see what part of the brain heats up. Most people, when they read, it's the occipital area behind the ear here that processes language. Dyslexics tend to have little pockets all through their head, primarily in the frontal lobe. This is not where language is supposed to be processed. So the question then becomes, all right, that's going to slow you down as a reader, but what's going on back here in the occipital area where it's supposed to be processed and isn't being, because that's not just dead matter back there. Well, we also have come to learn that some of our greatest abstract thinkers have been dyslexics. Einstein, Edison, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, these are all dyslexics. People are coming, Leonardo da Vinci comes up with a submarine and, I mean, all of this stuff, these abstract kind of what-if thoughts that are not,
Einstein thought of the laser I discovered the other day, 60 years ahead of his ahead of the game.
And all of it right brain stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it is a gift. And I believe that if we learn to, help people with the early school years, which is where it becomes difficult. Once you get out of school, it's not such a big problem anymore. It hasn't bothered me much since I graduated from college. And yeah, I have to adjust for it. I have to have people retype my stuff. I still have sequencing problems when I'm acting and I have a line that says do this, this, and this. I have a devil of a time remembering the line, I mean, I just don't sequence well at all. I have some right-left difficulties. Just don't know my right hand from my left. I have recall difficulties. Recall is basically not having good control of my short-term memory. So if I cram for a test, I can't just spit it back. Most people, they can cram, spit it back, go on, forget it. They don't know it. I got to sort of move it into my long-term memory in order to have it, because my short-term memory won't allow me to access it very quickly.
How interesting that you may have then extra room in this part of your brain because stuff moved out somewhere else.
Exactly.
And it can make, that's such a great way to look at it.
And I think since we now know that it has nothing to do with IQ, even though I think a lot of these kids with learning differences self-diagnose themselves as stupid.
Right.
They in fact aren't.
Well, it was a label that was often attached to people who were slow in school without any real thought about, why it might be the case. But that could happen to people who are deaf and people who are nearsighted. I mean, the whole world changed for me when I got glasses when I was 10 years old. It was like,
hello. Those trees.
Yeah, so there you are. But I do admire the work that you've done for it and, your candid approach to it. I mean, there's obviously no reason to be ashamed of it. If anything, I think it's a completely fascinating topic.
Well, I think it is too. And, I often say to kids when I speak to schools about dyslexia, do you know how Einstein discovered the theory of relativity? And, people say, well, no, so it's such a right brain thing. He was on a train, he was traveling to work, and there was a clock tower. And everybody would look at that clock tower to see whether they were going to be late for work. That's the left brainers, all the X over Y people. he's looking at that clock tower, and he's saying he's positing the following. So I know that train is moving at 60 miles an hour toward the clock. I know that vision travels at the speed of light toward me from the object. I wonder if the fact that the train is closing on the clock at 60 miles an hour is altering the time on the dial. That is the theory of relativity, the relationship between time and motion.
And what if time is actually all just some sort of big loop or continuum? My grandson gave me a lecture on this the other day. I'm still thinking about it.
But, I mean, what an interesting, simple idea.
And I'm glad you explained it to me, because frankly, I've never gotten it. And you know, we're out of time. And the one thing I forgot to do was even to mention your new book, On the Grind, or ask you anything about it. So we're just going to hope that people will read the Shane Scully series from the beginning. And I helpfully compiled a quick list of the titles they can find on your website. But it started in 2001 with The Tin Collectors, and you've read Viking Funeral, Hollywood Tough, Vertical Coffin, Cold Hit, White Sister, and Three Shirt Deal leading up to this. And I think your titles are great.
Oh, well, thank you very much. On the Grind, by the way, is your hustle. If you were selling drugs on a corner, that corner would be your grind. And this is about a corrupt police department in downtown Los Angeles, in an incorporated city that's preying on its population that Shane infiltrates.
It's wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Stephen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. There's never enough time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. And thank you all for sharing this hour with us.